So we also had the Derek Chauvin trial today. So you had the prosecutor, and then you had the defense attorney gave their opening remarks. And basically, the prosecutor is stating the obvious, and he's also stating the fact that he tried to put out there that the defense attorney for Derek Chauvin would be trying to use, right, the normal bringing up George Floyd's past, bringing up the fact that he had the drugs in the system, or he used drugs, divert from the culpability that Chauvin had for murdering the man. When you came to the defense attorney side, the defense attorney basically you can see their case is going to be set. It looks like it's going to be set on the fact that basically they're saying Derek Chauvin was following his training, right? So I guess their defense is going to be, well, it's not Derek Chauvin's fault, the police officer who killed Floyd, because that's the way the police department trained him to behave. In some aspect, that's a half truth, right? Even if somebody trained you to behave like that, for you to actually do it and lean on somebody's neck for 9 minutes until they lose their life makes you a horrible person for following the damn train, right? If somebody trains me or teaches me something that isn't right, and then I get into a real life situation where I have to use it, and I see that, hey, me putting my knee on the back of someone's neck and basically cutting off their air supply and strangling them to death is not acceptable. So even if you were trained to behave like that, to me, in my opinion, that doesn't give you an excuse for that behavior to be justified, right? You got people that go to Iraq, or people that are in war, and they're trained killers, right? They're over there in war, fighting in other countries, trained killers. We train our military, men and women personnel, to be trained assassins, trained killers. If they come back home to America and start using military tactics that they were trained for and start killing citizens, you can't use the excuse that the former Army vet or the former Navy vet or the former Marine vet can't be held culpable because that's the way that's what the United States government trained them to do. No, the police department didn't train you to murder someone, right? They may have trained you to use some questionable tactics at your discretion and judgment, but at some point, the culpability falls off the training and the trainer to the trainee, right? Because at some point, you have to use your own judgment, your own logic, and you have to say, hey, me putting my knee on the back of this man's neck for almost 9 minutes is unacceptable. So I don't know how that defense is going to go, but it looks like that's the one they're getting ready to that's one of the ones they're going to try to throw in there. Basically, this is the way Chauvin was trained to do, so it's not his fault that George Floyd died. We'll see how that plays out. It's the same old tune, right? It's the same old. If this works, I already got a feeling that if Chauvin doesn't get off completely, that he's going to get such a light damn sentence, it ain't going to matter. It's already just got this gut feeling that this trial going to be bigger than the OJ trial. Understand what I'm saying? Y'all know how big the OJ trial was, but I got a feeling that if I just got this strange, eerie feeling that there's not going to be no justice in this case. The other factor is that they keep bringing up George Floyd's past, and they keep bringing up the fact that he had drugs in his system, or he may have been intoxicated with some type of drug. Okay, I could go out today and I got marijuana in my system. Police pull me over, put their knee on the back of my neck for 9 damn minutes, strangle me to death. I lose my life. They do the autopsy, they find out I had marijuana in my system, or cocaine, or any drug. I'm just using hypothetical. Marijuana is illegal still in certain places, so we could even use marijuana for that. Remember, when it came to Trayvon Martin back in the day, they used marijuana. They said, oh, he smoked pot. He was a teenager. This time they're going to use whatever it is, cocaine, pills, oxycodone, I don't know, just whatever drug. If I went out and I had some drugs in my system, and then a police officer strangled me to death and I died on the street, then they do the autopsy and find out that I was intoxicated, that doesn't mean just because I had drugs in my system or I was intoxicated that I was going to goddamn die, right? That doesn't mean just because I had drugs in my system or alcohol in my system and I'm intoxicated that I was going to go into cardiac arrest. Okay, so the drugs alone, this is another reason why you don't put your goddamn knee on the back of someone's neck and use these type of tactics and strangle people, because you don't know their situation, right? You don't know their underlying conditions. You don't know their health situation. You don't know none of the dynamics. This wasn't like this was a bank robbery or a murder or a rape. This was over a $20 bill. This was a $20 case. So whatever you want to think about George Floyd, whether he was guilty or innocent, if he was justified or not justified being stopped, that's neither here nor there, because it was just a $20 $20 case. Even if what they're trying to say is, oh, he was guilty, so the probable cause to stop him and for that interaction to occur, it still was on a basis of a $20 infraction. The infraction that the man committed was worth $20. That don't justify you killing someone or strangling them. And just because whether he did or didn't have some type of substance in his system don't mean that he was gonna die if you wouldn't have did what the hell you would have did, right? If you wouldn't have pulled him out, if you wouldn't have pulled him out that car, if you wouldn't have threw him on the ground, if you wouldn't have put your knee on the back of his neck until he was lifeless, if none of that would have happened, that man is a good chance to be home with his kids as we speak, or doing whatever he do. It ain't no good chance. It's a certainty. It's a certainty that your actions, Derek Chauvin's actions, the cop who pulled George Floyd out of the car and started this whole interaction over a $20 crime, his actions directly led to the fatality of Floyd, right? His actions, and then, another one of his defenses is that his defense attorney say that Derek Chauvin shouldn't be held culpable because he was being distracted by all the other people that were yelling at him and that were out there on the scene that were, telling him to stop. Hey man, it's too much, get off it. He was being distracted by the mob. Supposedly it was a mob out there, a crowd, and he couldn't focus. So due to lack of focus and due to that he was distracted by the crowd, he shouldn't be held culpable. Hey man, except for the fact that the crowd that was around you that you were distracted by were all telling you to get off of the man's neck. We're all telling you, hey man, I think he's about to die, which even further for the prosecution could be, okay, you were distracted, but why didn't you take heed to the distraction? Because the people were right. The people who were distracting you, diverting your attention to try to get your attention, were telling you that you're killing him. So it wasn't like you was distracted because there was another crime going on, or you were distracted because people were about to attack you, or you were in fear for your life because there was another armed individual on the scene. Everybody who was there that was distracting you with the fact to let you know that you're killing George Floyd. So why the hell then you continue to keep your knee on his neck until the man passed away, crying, basically calling for his mother, right, with his last breaths. You continued that even after the people who were distracting you, the distraction was telling your ass that you killing the man. So even after the people who distracted you, I don't see how could that be a liable defense? Because that's one of the damn excuses that he's trying to use, is that he was being distracted. I guess he couldn't pay attention, or his attention wasn't 100% on, because it was diverted on the crowd. Again, except for everybody in the goddamn crowd was saying, hey man, you're killing him. So I don't know how this George Floyd thing is going to work out, but it's interesting to see the dynamics of how they're already starting to prepare the case, right? So I can tell you that on Chauvin, the cops end, right, they're already coming up with multiple excuses to divert any type of culpability or from him taking any responsibility for what happened. They're trying to say his drug use. They're trying to say it was the crowd that was out there. It was distractions. It was all this and all that. The only thing that I can say is it was a $20 crime in the first place. It was just for a counterfeit $20 bill, man. Could you imagine getting pulled over by the police? And let's just say you were guilty of stealing something out of the store or whatever it was, but it was worth $20. And somehow at the end of that interaction with the cops, you dead because of a $20 crime, right? You wasn't armed. You wasn't a threat. So this is the type of situation we are in this country. So it's going to be interesting to see how this trial plays out and what happens from it. I wonder how many of y'all would think if the trial plays out and Derek Chauvin is found innocent, do you think it's going to be an uprising, another protest? Where the hell is Black Lives Matter at? I doubt if Black Lives Matter, they so paid now, they done got all the damn money. I doubt if they going to do anything for the George Floyd case. Like I said before, the last thing Black Lives Matter want to do is get any attention to them as they spend and live it up, spend all the millions of dollars they got. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to probably put a poll up. I got a couple polls up on the channel already I need to go check out. It's going to be interesting to see how many people think they're acquitted or you think he's going to be found guilty. And then it goes to what is he going to be found guilty of, right? Is he going to be found guilty of murder 1, murder 2, murder 3, manslaughter? It's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. I say murder 1 because not only did he kill George Floyd, but being that they had prior history together, it seemed to me that he had intent. And the way you can prove intent is depending on what their prior history shows, the interactions that they had in the past, right? So depending on what the prosecution got, if they're going to be legit, if they're going to be straight up and do their due diligence. Because, again, Chauvin and Floyd had a prior history to this incident. They had run-ins before. And depending on how those interactions went, if there were any witnesses of how they played out and panned out, can potentially show intent to murder and kill. And that's where you can get a first-degree murder charge. Right? You can't get a first-degree murder charge if there's no intent. So it'll be interesting to see how this is going to play out. But I'm going to take the poll. I got a good feeling that I don't know. I don't think that they're gonna have the to let him off scot-free. Let's put it like that. I don't think they're gonna have the to just. I mean, they might. Again, I can't even say that. They've done so much blatant over the years that it's a good possibility they'll have the to just acquit him and he get off scot-free. It's going to be interesting to see how the jury pans out. I think depending on how the jury pans out, how the jury makeup look, is going to be dependent on what happens to Chauvin. Again, people don't like to touch on the race factor, and people like to act like I'm supposed to be oblivious or naive to the fact that race exists in America, or I'm supposed to be scared to talk about it because it makes people uncomfortable. But obviously, this racism is alive and well in this country, and I think we're going to have even further proof of that with all the proof we already have. Just another case of it with this whole trial. I mean, why would something good happen and you have any faith in the system when for the past goddamn my whole lifetime, over 30 years, I can speak for as far as I've been born, and then prior to my lifetime from everything I've studied and read from the past. But in my whole lifetime being on this earth, I don't think I could ever think of a time of justice when it deals with police killing my people. I don't think I could ever think of a time of justice. And I'm not talking about, a cop got locked up for a few. I'm talking about where the punishment is going to fit the crime. Right? If it was a black person, just a regular black civilian, be facing the damn death penalty. If something like that was caught on damn tape, you murdering somebody, that's like an extrajudicial killing. That's basically an execution in the middle of the goddamn street. People would be calling for the damn death penalty if that was reversed and that was a black man doing that to anybody. Imagine if it was a black man doing that to a cop. Just put the uniform on the ground under George Floyd's neck. Imagine if the cop was on the ground and George Floyd did what Chauvin did to him. The same people who are willing to make all these excuses, and we can say, the cop was a dirty cop. The cop had drugs in his system, right? Just take all the excuses, but put it on the cop and put the uniform on him, and then put George Floyd standing over him. And you tell me, if you're not a racist and you're going to be honest and logical, what do you think the outcome is going to be? What do you think the outcome is going to be? Now you can take the uniform off and don't have to be a cop. Any white guy in the middle of the street with cameras rolling. Any white guy. What do you think the consequences was going to be? Exactly. My point proven. That's one of the defenses I think the prosecution should use. Right. Let's take the situation in the roles reverse. Right. Let's put George Floyd in the place of Chauvin, and let's put Chauvin in the place of George Floyd. How would you feel about it? Right. How would you feel about that? Hearing Chauvin cry and beg for his life, then starts eight minutes into the damn, right before he dies with his last breaths, he starts to call and plead and beg and call for his mother. And then the cameras roll as he takes his last breath and his life leaves his body. If that was roles reversed and George Floyd was alive today, but Derek Chauvin was the one under his knee, come on, what do you think would happen? What do you think should happen? And honestly, anybody's going to say, well, of course, he should get the death penalty or he should get life in prison. That was a horrible crime. But if you can't see that when the skin color and the roles are reversed, you're probably racist. You're probably a racist. That's all I'm saying. So that's happening.